As you can see, I've already covered Russell's eyebrows, and we've actually drawn new ones on in a higher, slightly more feminine place. And I've applied a little bit of concealer underneath the brow just to tweak the shape of them, and also a primer on the base of the lids so that all my shadows are going to stick on and grip really nicely.
It looks disturbing at the moment. I'd like some concealer on my identity at this point.
So these first colours I'm going to use from these eyeshadows are all from the Me, Myself and Mitchell palette. This is Muse. I'm going in. I always like to go in my darker crease colour first. I kind of create the shape of the eye makeup and then use all my lighter shades to buff and blend everything out with. So once I've laid down my first colour in the crease, I'll start to blend it out with a lighter, brighter shade. This is Mr. H from the same palette. And once I've got those shadows laid down, I'm going to apply a tiny pop of highlighter, nice shiny shimmery highlighter underneath the brow, and then start cutting out the crease. This next stage is basically creating a new socket. And one of my favourite products to use for this is actually the P.Louise base. This is shade number 2. And sort of going in, carving out the crease using a sharp flat concealer brush, and then you want to pat all across the lid, and that'll almost make it a bit tacky and stick, so you could apply matte shadow or shimmer shadow over the top of that.
You promised me it wouldn't be tacky.
So once I've carved out that lid and applied my P.Louise base, I've set that base with Muffin, and I'm now smoking out the outer corner with the black shadow from the palette and bringing that back into the crease to help lift the eyes up and out. Let's create big glamorous goldfish eyes. Bring them right outside of your head.
I look like, you know, if the lads run out of budget on a stag night, I'm the one they would rent. We've got 40 euros left. What about that one in the wig cap?
Now that the majority of the eyes, I mean the top part of the eyes is complete, I'm going to start putting lashes on, and I'm actually going to stack 2, potentially 3 pairs of lashes together. You always want to start off with the smallest pair and stick them closer to the inner corner, and then I'm going to go with the thickest pair and like stack them on the outer corner. And personally, I quite like to do this actually on the eye. So I'm kind of like preparing the glue and popping that on the lash on all of them.
On the eye. When you say on the eye,
yeah, on the lash line.
Cool.
On the eyeball.
On the ball. Well, you know when you're out and you just see one lash on the floor, I always wonder what its story is. While
the glue is going tacky on those lashes, I'm going to start with your foundation. And the very first, the most important thing to do is cover and cancel out that 5 o'clock shadow. So this is a peach color corrector by LA Girl. It basically helps to knock back that bluey undertone that can come through. I personally don't like to use like the proper like oranges and reds that you see some people using, because I find it's a little bit too much. It's kind of overkill. Unless someone's got super dark facial hair, then you might need to go around with something with a bit more oomph. Right, going on that first pair now, just sticking them right against the lash lines. I'm actually just going to use 2 pairs, using the bigger pair in the outer corner just to give that lift. And I'm not really stacking it on the actual lash line. I'm tilting it up a little bit so it should come up more, and then open again. And then push down, and then pushing it up. Open. Yeah, lovely.
I just always end up looking like Dustin Hoffman, whatever I do.
So this foundation that we're pretty much piling on is the Huda Beauty Faux Filter foundation. It's the only other foundation apart from the Kryolan paint sticks I'd use if I were doing a drag makeup, because it's liquid, but it's so thick that it covers and hides any sins.
And does it look natural on camera, or but on a night out you'd definitely be able to tell? I'm asking for a friend. But specifically under the lodges of a travel lodge light, that's what I need to check. I feel like I should go scouts now, and it would be totally acceptable.
You're getting into it now, aren't you?
This foundation's like a sort of death mask palette.
It is, isn't it? That's why we need to go back in the colour in. So we're going to employ the use of elastics and adhesives on Russell's face and snatch some of that skin back. Sometimes you can get specific things that you can use to actually to achieve this. They're called Mark Trainer face tapes, but if you're like me and you're being a bit cheap, you can just use microporous tape. It works a treat.
And if you haven't got pockets, it creates handy storage areas in the folds of skin.
It really does.
I like to take a couple of extra chewing gums, just pop behind the ear. Then if you are going to get off with someone, you can just freshen up with some mint just beforehand.
Just going to use a little bit of the alcohol to clean around the sideburn area. Sorry if that's a bit
The good thing
stinky.
is that doesn't sting.
Good.
It reminds me of when my nan used to speak quietly to me. So much alcohol was in her breath. Come here, love.
So we're gonna use some spirit gum on this area here, just to work as some extra adhesion for the masking tape that we're gonna pop on. It's really important to make sure that you give this a good tap, so that it goes sticky before you put the tapes on, otherwise the tapes will just sort of slip and slide around. We'll apply the tape, and I sort of put the tape on and give it a gentle lift.
So this just makes all the makeup just look better, because this makes my skin look tighter.
You see, brings those cheekbones out even more. But I don't do like the final lift till right at the end.
Exciting.
But I want that glue to dry properly, so if I pulled it now, it's going to give lift, but I don't want them to ping off, so I'm kind of putting them on. Wait for that. Once it's all sort of nice and stuck down, you'll get this. So this is the Kevyn Aucoin Sensual Skin Enhancer. It's actually supposed to be a foundation, but it's basically just like a really, really thick concealer. And it's great for drag makeup because it's so full coverage, and I use a lighter shade through all the high points of the face just to really make everything pop, and then go back over with my sponge to marry that all onto the skin. All right, the next step is to bring some contouring in, and I'm going to use the same product actually that I drew the brows on with, which is a cream foundation stick by Anastacia Beverly Hills, and it's called in the shade Fawn. It's really nice because it's a really cool taupey sort of almost a greyish colour, which is really good for making the sort of creating the look of shadow.
I look like a hot ghost at the moment.
You look like a hot ghost. We're going to start blending that contour in now, because obviously we can't just leave it like a straggly line. So I'm just using a fluffy brush first to kind of like disperse the product out, and then I go back in with my sponge. I quite like to layer cream blush with all my cream contour and cream powders, so just add that extra oomph, I guess. And you can always blend creams in a lot better, I find too. So I can kind of like slap it on basically, and then use a sponge to push it back a bit.
Oh, Face ID hesitated there, and we're nearly there. It was like, are you sure that's Russell?
So we're going to start setting the face with the Fenty setting powder and butter. And I always use that with a flat sponge. I'm just making sure that any of the little fine lines or anywhere the foundation is settled into has all been blended out first. And then when you're using such like full coverage products, you kind of need to go in with a powder that's going to make sure everything's not going to move.
I've got that one, smells well nice.
Oh, good.
Is that the butter one, is it?
Yes.
Smells of butter, I can report.
The great thing about these sponges is like they have like this little sharp edge, so I'm using the powder underneath the contour to make the contour like a bit more punchy, a bit sharper. So just a few more powders now throughout the skin. I'm going to use some of the MAC Mineraliser Skin Finish powders. I always go with a lighter one through the centre of the face, and then a darker one to sort of bring out a bit more colour. I'm using a light plus and medium dark, and they kind of help to set the foundation, add an extra layer of coverage as well. This is the medium dark now, so we're kind of taking that through all the contour areas, and that's going to help bring some warmth back into the skin. And then to finish up all my powder contouring, I use Marc Jacobs in Fantastic on an angled brush and take that right into the hollows of the cheekbones. This is a tiny bit cooler, but it just helps to really like deepen the cheekbone. And I also really like this colour for a nose contour too. So taking on a fluffy brush, and you want to sort of like slim down the centre of the nose, just running up and down, up and down, up and down.
So some of the things you're doing here would, like people doing regular makeup, girls be able to steal some of the tips and do it on like a scaled down thing like
yeah, definitely. There's definitely tips you can take away from this that you can employ in an everyday makeup. I mean, some girls, I would do their makeup just like this. I just wouldn't cover their brows.
No.
Another little thing I like to do to help with nose contour, because I don't like nose contours to be too strong, so I take some of my translucent powder and use it in almost kind of like reverse contour by taking the highlight powder right down the sides of the nose. And then the centre of the nose, I like to run actual highlighter down the middle rather than powder, like a translucent powder. Don't want to make it too dark underneath the eyes, so I'm just running a little bit of like a basically neutral brown shadow underneath, and then I'm going to smoke out these outer corners more in towards the centre of the face. So these next wee steps are all about adding flushes and blushes. So we're going in with blusher, highlighter, and I also need to go back through the brows, and of course lips. And that's why I always think that last little 10% makes all the difference.
Yeah, still just about working.
So I'm going to start doing a little bit more detail on the brows. And I've used one of the Anastacia brow powders, but I wet it. so that I can use it almost like a pomade. I guess you could just use a pomade. And I like to go into the arch of the brows and basically draw a bit more detail into them so they're not just like a block. It's almost like drawing a little texture. It's very on brand at the moment for drag queens to have like hairy eyebrows. So I'm just using a little bit of gel liner again to take the black on the inner corners a little bit closer to the inner corner of the eyes. It just helps us to make a little bit more of a feline, feminine shape, and mirroring that basically underneath the eye with the extreme highlighter in the inner corner. I'm going to use a liquid lipstick, so I quite like to just sort of paint liquid lipsticks directly onto the lip and then go in with a lip liner if I need to. But this is Pinky Promise by Dose of Colours.
Darling, you should have seen me in my prime. I threw flowers at my feet.
You done now?
Yeah.
Good. She's happy. Right, once I've done my first lift, I always like to go back over that with another layer of the tape, just to make sure it doesn't ping off, because there's nothing like having your face falling down halfway through the evening. And then all of this obviously gets hidden with the wig. Well, I think that's everything for makeup.
Looks good.
Let's finish everything up.
Okay, what's next?
I'll put your wig on and get you in your outfit.
Oh my god.